Welcome everyone. I'm Gunjan Sinha, Chairman of MetricStream, and with me today I have Gitard Marine Juan, who's the Managing Director and Head of Global Internal Audit at Banco Santander. And over the years, Gitard Juan has become a close friend, working together with us at many of the GRC implementation journeys at Banco Santander, that which MetricStream and Santander have gone through together. And his perspectives on GRC have been truly enlightening for me personally. So it's my real pleasure to invite Juan to our conversation today as a closing keynote. So welcome, Juan. How are you doing?
Very well, Gungan. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, and thank you for joining all the way from Madrid for a conversation with me. And I have some key questions as we go into our conversation today. The first question is, in my mind, is what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced over the past 18 months and how you have course corrected to overcome the pandemic and the challenges that have come to your organization and Banco Santander at large?
Well, first, Gungan, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity of being present here again in this GRC Summit that's been organized by MetricStream. And coming to your question, well, clearly all of us have had relevant challenges in the last 18 months, number of challenges, but probably in my view, the most relevant two ones are first, how to almost all of a sudden come to work in remote for a long stand period of time and massively for everybody. And second one, just the opposite. How are we coming back to work in the office in the proper way? So as far as the first one, when you ask about how to overcome the challenge, I guess that we had several tools. First of all, the almost immediate access and availability of remote tools, not only to held meetings, but to really execute the work, the audit work. And second, probably a very quick adaptation of our plans and our methodologies to that remote type of activity. I mean, we have to identify new types of risks that didn't exist in the past, or new displays of the old risk that already existed. For example, when we have to control market desks that are working in remote, how do you control them? And how to execute everything that has to do with the control of money laundering in remote. So those were the challenges and those were the answers. And when going to the second challenge, that's how do we get back now to office? Well, I guess that the main element is that we all have to acknowledge that not in all cases, the outcome of working in remote is exactly the same that working face-to-face. So you cannot just go to remote forever. And second, you need the balanced way to come back to the office, precisely because part of it has to be face-to-face and part can be done in remote. But at the same time, clearly, we all are facing the challenge of a relevant part of our working force asking for a different standards of how to organize work in remote or at home. So probably those are the two main elements, the challenges and the ways to overcome them.
No, thank you, Juan. That was pretty insightful. And, that kind of dovetails into how I kind of was looking at the challenge in terms of, if you kind of put your perspective and you ask, the GRC industry itself has now gone through a rapid pace of evolution, right? There are some new trends that have emerged, post-pandemic, as you touched upon some of that. And what do you think how the business has stepped into the boardroom as a strategic driver? Because there are elements of what you just described, at the operating level, things have evolved and changed. But I was just reflecting on how do you believe that the boardroom is now seeing GRC as a strategic driver? Because part of the evolution of GRC is it's kind of become more strategic now, more so now than ever before. Any insights or any thoughts from you, Juan, on that?
Well, yes, I guess that the pandemic has put challenges and changes to every one of us, many of them related with, as you say, GRC. But that's huge, and in many cases not totally known so far. But again, probably some examples can help us. Sustainability, that is far beyond climate change, is one of the elements that is clearly top in the tables of the boards. Another one is the ubiquity presence of data and technology to gather and treat data as an essential element. Let me elaborate on those two. As far as sustainability, the part of it that has to do with climate clearly is on the top responsibility of the boards. And speaking from my position, which is a bank and a European bank, is not only that the urgent nature of climate change make it urgent. It's more than that, that in many aspects, the part of sustainability that has to do with climate change is already becoming a specific requirement by supervisors. In the case of Europe, we have for the next year the so-called climate stress test organized by the European Banking Authority that implies that we, with the responsibility at the top level of the board, have to be prepared for that stress test. So sustainability connected with the needing of having data and risk analysis and compliance analysis make that the mixture of ESG and GRC are at the top level of the box. But the other part of it, in my view, is data and technology, because at the end of the day, I think that the next step of governance is how to organize good governance, because at the end of the day, good governance is making good decisions, both in terms of business decisions and social decisions. And in today's world, it's impossible to make good decisions without having the appropriate data well organized and well analyzed. So at least in those two examples, clearly everything that has to do with the compliance, with risk, with governance, connected with ESG is in the top agenda and has to be in the top agenda of the boards. No?
Yeah, no, that's very well said. And I would concur with you 100%. ESG and GRC are, rapidly becoming the boardroom agenda, and the emergence of ESG, since we're talking about ESG, like one of the things which I feel people have to start thinking about how to quantify ESG. So the emergence of ESG has changed the way, kind of how you think about your business and how you apply the GRC platform to meet the emerging need to define the ESG score in a company. And so if you start thinking about the ESG score as a concept, any insight on that, Juan, especially as you're looking at it for financial services?
Yes, well, any insight that probably is, of course, is very relevant, but at the same time is, let's call it quite fluid. I mean, there are many unknowns and some certainties, so it's work in progress. But out of that work in progress, at least some of the certainties, in my view, are, first, the ESG scorecard, ESG, generally speaking, has become for business as relevant as business itself. So you have to take care of it as part of your business. Second, in order to establish a scorecard, you need to identify items and to establish thresholds to be followed for those items. But that has to be built at the same time where even basic taxonomies are being discussed and are not still there. So at least you have to begin by those aspects in which there is more clarity, for example, climate change and the thresholds and the keys and the elements, and developing that part of it, then you will come with the other parts of it, including governance and social. And third certainty, of course, you have to have a good scorecard and you have to set demanding thresholds. But at the same time, you have to be flexible. Let me put an example. Very recently, when discussing the European taxonomy for what is considered green finance, there is an element of what is considered financing of houses that are green. But when talking with our European supervisors about, well, we are present in many countries. We are present in, for example, Mexico. And there, for many people, much more important than having a house that is green is having a house, even though it may not be green. So we have to cope with it. And at the end of the day, through the discussion, we get to identify another part of the taxonomy within the social part of it that is affordable housing. So we have to combine both and just not delete finance for housing that is not green because it's not green. It's housing and it's affordable housing. So we have to put them together and get to a balanced scorecard. And these are, I insist, part of the certainties mixed with a lot of unknowns yet.
Yeah. No, and I think, Juan, I would agree with you that it's about, GRC started, focusing early at the financial crisis on the financial and operational risk. Over the years, it started to look at cyber and digital, and now it has to incorporate environmental, climate, and social, both of them, environmental and social, both as part of the ESG framework. So it's kind of coming together. It may have taken a decade. Over the last decade, all of these pieces have come together to really formulate an integrated risk management approach, an integrated GRC approach. And I think the question that I would kind of now kind of pivot to is a simple one, saying if there are a lot of people who have had lots of experience with GRC, but if you are just starting on your GRC journey, is there something that you would share from your vantage point in terms of how they should think about the GRC strategy, kind of learn from some of the experiences or mistakes or battlefield scars that people have had in the past, and how can they leverage automation and advanced innovation and other things to the best use? Any advice for people who are just embarking on their GRC journey today?
Well, I would not say advice, let's be humble, but at least share some experience. And what I can tell you, it's more clear every day for me, is that you get a very good outcome when you put together people working with very different approaches. Mainly, if you have subject matter experts, maybe in markets or in credit or in AML, and you have people with very good skills in data gathering and using data and getting conclusions from data, and they work together, that's a very good mix because they obtain better results. And even more, in my world, which is audit, you have to test. They do the tests, they automate the tests, and they identify new elements that can be tested and put together. So the mixed activity of these two kind of people working together, not only one-to-one, but teams, really creates a very good framework and delivers very good results, if to say something.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great insight here, Juan. But really appreciate your comments and thoughts. I think, it's always been a pleasure when I kind of get on a conversation with you. Some real insights comes out, especially as you connected GRC and ESG. And this is something that I personally, as the chairman of the company, I've been feeling about GRC ever since inception, that truly it's about bringing all the pieces together and quantifying it. Whether it's financial and operational risk, whether it's cyber digital risk, whether it's environmental and social. And as GRC starts to merge with ESG, what we call ESGRC, and you start to really quantify these things through risk quantification, that's when the magic happens. And so thank you, Juan, for your experiences. And to the broader audience here today, I really want to thank all of you today. I know it's kind of end of the day and it's been a long day. We've had over 2,000 GRC professionals, believe it or not, joining us across industries to talk about various facets of risk and governance and compliance today. So I really want to thank all of you that you found the time to be here and you found the conversations hopefully very valuable today because these are important topics for not just our businesses, for the world at large. And that's exciting, and that's what keeps me personally motivated. I enjoyed the opportunity to speak today with Juan, and I'll tell you the conversation that happened earlier on, which was Bruce's talk on Thrive on Risk, and to discuss ESGRC. In my mind, there are two key themes that emerged. Number one, risk can be turned into a strategic advantage. risk is not just a brake, it can actually become an accelerator of your business performance, what we call thriving on risk. And the second thing which jumped out at me based on Bruce's conversation was seizing the opportunity, which is around environmental social governance, ESG. That's what Juan talked about it right now, is also going to be critical. And there was a third point that I picked up, which is around the theme of resilience, adaptability, and agility. That kind of echoed throughout the day. Post-pandemic, agility is going to, differentiate the winners from people who are going to struggle. So we got to be agile. So we've been all throughout a tremendous amount of change over the last 2 years through the pandemic. I think you heard that from many speakers. And the wave of digitization, the new ways of working, Juan talked about remote working, hybrid work models, and all of those are evolving. So there's new ways of working and new and evolving risks that are emerging. We are dealing with constantly new regulations, combating cyber attacks. There's a lot of stake here at ground, and I know all of us feel it in some form or fashion. But as GRC leaders, I'm really proud that all of you guys have risen to the occasion. All of us are figuring out ways to make GRC relevant, not just in the groups of risk professionals, but to the front lines, to each and every employees, third parties, and extended enterprise. And that is exciting for me personally. We also, throughout the day, heard about resilience and turning risk into a strategic advantage from the earlier I mentioned from Bruce and some of our other panelists. And I'd like to thank each one of them to kind of highlight that. They showed us how to deal in managing regulatory compliance, how to address, navigate issues like Brexit with agility, and how we can adapt to what's next in GRC. And as I already mentioned, ESG is emerging as a strategic initiative of the decade. Just like, I go back to 1990s when the browser got first invented, it was a game changer. It literally changed business itself, the connectivity, the internet itself. ESG is a tectonic shift of that same magnitude because it's changing the business itself. Business is not just about profit anymore. It's about the combination of profit and purpose. And today, for the first time, the society is becoming a key stakeholder for business in a real formal way. It's not just about shareholders, partners, customers, employees. As a business leader, you also have to now put a circle around society and saying, what are we doing as a business leader to serve the society as a key stakeholder? And that's the fundamental shift. That's why I feel ESG is going to be a massive tectonic shift in how it defines business objectives, business priorities, and the impact of business overall. So combination of profit and purpose. So this is a burning topic. There's no doubt ESG is fundamentally changing how businesses operate from here on. And measuring ESG is an imperative for every company of the future. At MetricStream, me personally, and I know all of us are super excited about launching innovative solutions on, not just GRC, but now, kind of integrating ESG, what we call ESGRC. And there's a ton of innovation you're going to see coming out of us already, but also into the future. It's also exciting to hear about a number of our product innovations, from risk quantification to cyber risk reporting to regulatory compliance, but also real smart use of automation and AI and machine learning to make faster, smarter decisions, not just in the corporate boardrooms or in risk offices, but also in the front lines of the extended enterprise. That includes your employees, but also your third-party suppliers. And it's clear that understanding risk in business today, in my mind, is not just about monetary terms or prioritizing investments or getting better decisions or reducing risk. It's also about how you turn your business in a competitive strategic advantage against the market in which you're operating. So you're going to hear tomorrow from a guest speaker from Verizon, which I'll urge you to actually attend, a whole topic on cyber risk quantification. So please don't miss that, because that's a key theme for me. Quantification of risk is one of the key differentiators on how you think about creating a risk-based culture in your respective enterprise. So those were some of the key takeaways. the way I think about it is be resilient, thrive on risk. I love that phrase. This is not about just, managing risk or just embracing risk. You have to get to the mindset of thrive on risk, where risk becomes a true accelerator of business performance. Let's continue to innovate and let's power the future together. MetricStream is here to help. Our partners are here to help, and our customers are here to co-innovate with. So let's make this a joint journey. And I'd love to see you all tomorrow for a fresh day of conversation at the GRC Summit. So thank you all for being here, and I appreciate your time from no matter where you have joined around the world. So thank you. And finally, thank you, Juan, for being here. As I said, it's a real pleasure to always attend these conversations and have a conversation with you. And appreciate your leadership from Europe on what you have done at Banco Santander, but also globally. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gungan, and congratulations for the meeting.
Thank you.